For the first time with Champaign is Also a Band podcast, I'm entering with a cold open to tell you of a content warning. This podcast briefly mentions homicide, suicide. We talk about it a little bit, but we don't go into specific detail. But I felt it was important that I inform the listener that this is a subject that we will be touching on in this particular episode. I contacted Kelsey after this episode was recorded. I checked in with her to see if it was okay to let everyone know as a content warning. And also I checked with her about resources that are out there that she would recommend so that I could share the resources that are out there. Please check out the liner notes in the podcast for a list of contact information. I just wanted to give a shout out to an organization that I reached out to under the advice of Kelsey, and it's called rattlethestars.org. And I reached out to them on Facebook. Their link will also be included, but I'm also supposed to emphasize they are not an organization to call in a crisis. They refer people to other resources. But I was able to contact them on Facebook, and they gave me some wonderful information and resources. I will be reposting this contact information in the liner notes. Suicide is not an easy topic to talk about, and we touch on it briefly, but I want to personally thank Kelsey Sharp for talking with me about this song and sharing some monkey bread and really showing me what it's like to heal after something that is really difficult to deal with. It's never easy losing a loved one, and especially two parents at the same time. Thank you so much, Kelsey, and be sure to look out for one another because there is help out there. Welcome to Champaign is Also a Band podcast. One songwriter, one song. I'm Sven, your host for a journey into the music of Champaign-Urbana. Recorded in the Blue Box studio with a songwriter from the Champaign-Urbana music scene, past or present. Hello and welcome to Champaign is Also a Band podcast. My name is Sven, and I'm here with Kelsey Sharp, and we're going to be talking about her song Healing. But first of all, I'm going to say hi to Kelsey Sharp. And how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Sven?
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming out. And
thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming and recording a demo version of this song so that everyone can hear what a wonderful piece of music it is.
Thank you.
So I'm going to first tell people some of the bands that they may have seen you in the local Champaign-Urbana area. The first one is Tell Mama, and recently you were in Snail and Fiona Kimball. Well, without further ado, which is something I seem to say a lot, let's listen to the song Healing.
Never thought this would happen to me. Still waiting to wake up from this nightmare. Doesn't seem real, doesn't feel right. In a world with so many people, why does it have to be my life? Absorbing what's happened, these feelings so tragic, can't help but want to run away. The things I'd say if I could go back, I have to accept the things I cannot change. Why is time so unfair? No pause for healing, it's the hardest part of dealing with the truth. It may set you free, but it means I've accepted losing you. I've accepted losing you. Not a day goes by you don't cross my mind, and I know you're here, and I know you're here with me. Reality hits you faster than you think. Time runs out before you can even realize the time's just passed you by. The more you love, the more you lose. They can't take away my memories of being with you. I can't wait for the day my dream comes true. Get to spend the rest of my days just being with you.
Excellent. Well, thank you for recording that with me, and I guess let's just dive right in.
All right, let's do it.
So you said that we had been talking earlier before recording that this was a song that you wrote for your senior recital, and well, I mean, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, I wrote it for my parents. The first time I performed it was at my senior recital.
Oh, okay. Okay. Very good. So you wrote it for your parents. So is there a story about this that you'd like to talk about?
I don't know how much I'd mentioned before in email or anything. My parents passed away 7 years ago as of this October 13th.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I appreciate it. And it happened about 8 months before my senior recital, my graduation senior year, 8 months before I was completely done with school. And so it was kind of a shock, and it was very out of the blue. And it was a homicide suicide, and my parents were, by all standards, normal in our eyes, and we just didn't see it coming. And I wrote this song about 3 months after their passing, and I've since written a lot of songs, but this is kind of like the mecca of like really describes what I was feeling at the time. And I didn't really know what it was going to bring me later in terms of how it was going to help me heal. And it felt only natural that I called the song Healing, because it was kind of my process of processing grief and my way of putting that into something tangible that people can feel and understand. And the first time I received that recording back was the first time I had heard it from the other side, and it was just like, it was incredibly healing, and I just started like bawling, and it was like hearing the song for the first time. And I've since listened to that recording over 100 times, and each time it brings me a little bit of that peace of mind, and just like knowing that I'm on the right path, and knowing that music is what I'm supposed to do. So
wow, I had no idea. I wasn't sure if it was about like a breakup, or like just no longer seeing someone anymore. And wow, that's one of the amazing things about songwriting in general, is that it does have a wide interpretation, and also just it means different things to different people. And it's in some ways it's surprising that in some ways there is a very hopeful quality about your playing, and the chords that you chose, and the way that you I must admit I'm a little bit taken aback. I didn't know the full story, and so now I feel like I'm scrambling to reinterpret and look at this through those eyes. I've lost people in my life quickly and suddenly, and I was actually really captivated by your entry, your intro the piano part. It is very dreamlike and kind of as like the fade in and the sparkling and it's that where you have where the picture is kind of coming in clearer and you're trying to figure out where it is, because it doesn't, as an arpeggio, you're not just doing 1 3s and 5s, you're doing a big scape of multi-layered chords that as you're doing the arpeggio, you might be doing what you would consider like a full jazz chord, but because of your articulation as you're going through, it seems like you're shifting the chords as you're going, but it's as one whole phrase. Did that make sense at all?
I was going to say you're hitting the nail on the head with everything you're talking about.
Because it's like this. You did a very good job of emoting it with your playing.
Thank you.
And because it does seem like the shifting, like there's not. It's a chord for like a second, and then it's one type of chord for a second, and then it's another type of chord for another second. Very short period of time, and it's just it's wonderfully I was gonna say it's wondering and beautiful, so it's wonderfling is what started coming out, but it's like as it kind of comes into focus, and then you've just got this, you just kind of clarify it with your words, like I had a dream you were here, and then I woke up, turned around, and then it's, then you're coming back to this
kind of
more solid
reality.
More solid, where you have you go from something that's this wondering, sparkling, changing,
it's kind of like a dream sequence.
Dream sequence, and then you go to this like the 1 2 3 4 1, where you're doing these chords that are just based on a very, I want to say, on a regimented rhythm, where you're back to grounded and very back to reality. That's when you have this, I never thought that this would happen to me, and interesting that you're saying that the song is called Healing, and that you brought in your own personal healing through this song in some ways. Did it start on the piano, or did it start with the words, or?
I think it started as an improv, and I had that dream sequence at the very beginning. I had written actually before they had passed, and it was just a thing that didn't have any lyrics or idea, or it was just a thing. And then that happened, and then one day I was in the practice room and I started playing that, and it just kind of unfolded naturally, and the beginning part came out pretty easily, but then finishing the song took a while, because I had to figure out what it was I wanted to say with the song, and even finding the way to say it is always really hard. And I can be very critical about even the words that I settled on, but I think it's simple enough that it gets the point across, and it kind of covers, like, the song is written, there's the dream sequence of imagining that they're still here, because it's kind of a bigger metaphor for, like, this whole experience of dealing with grief has felt like a nightmare, a dream, a different alternate reality, because it just doesn't feel real that something like that would happen. So, and then at the end it kind of comes back full circle, ending with that same reference to the dream, and saying, I can't wait till my dream comes true, and I actually get to be with them again. And throughout the lyrics, it's pretty chronological in that it goes through, like, the feeling of numbness at the very beginning, and kind of slowly acceptance, and then about halfway through the song the chord progression changes, and the whole feel, it's more uplifting and even more hopeful, and that's when the lyrics go more positive, and to say that I'm strong, I'm happy, I'm letting go of the pain, and the hurt no longer shows. And so it turns more positive, and it kind of tries to leave the listener with a more hopeful feeling of, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and there's hope for me, and I'm not alone in anything that I'm suffering through. At
that point, you even turn the key change, and are you an A flat?
Yeah.
Okay. That was just watching I didn't sit, and figure it, but I was just watching your hands as you record. See, that's the kind of fun thing about, actually seeing someone record demo and see kind of, just
Seeing
like this monkey bread with many different layers. You get to see how the cake is made, but not the sausage is made, because you don't want to see that. No, I'm just I don't know what it is about really sad things that people tend to, and by people I mean me, tend to kind of deflect in some ways with humor, and there's certainly a place for the humor, because it's sometimes it's like it's not as painful as well, you give a chance for yourself to have something other than pain for a little bit, and you run the gamut with this, not in terms of humor, but certainly that brightness towards the end where you're kind of resolving and giving yourself permission to be okay, and
or not okay too.
Yeah. Well, it's okay to be not okay, kind of. Yes. But I can't even comprehend just how sudden that would be, and I mean, I'm really sorry that had to be something that's in your life that in some ways has kind of shaped you, and
absolutely.
Can you tell me a little bit more of the early development of the song, besides just not besides, but so you wrote the lyrics, and then how did you decide to kind of flesh out the music behind it, and then like how did that, beyond the dream part, when did you start getting into, I guess, more of the verse parts and
yeah, the verse part was hard because I didn't want just to sound like every other pop song, 1-4-3-5 or something, and I think a lot of it was just improvising and does this sound nice? No, maybe what if I take it here? And then like the one I found, major, minor, major, and then like a diminished minor, and that's the one that kind of reminds me and references like Radiohead, because they do that chord progression.
Yes.
I think it's it's predominantly known in like Creep, where they do the diminished, and it's just like it gives me chills. And when I played it, I was like, oh, this really is appropriate and it fits the feel. And the rest of like expanding that was really, again, improv and like just playing around with those chords and seeing what comes out of it. And then, like I said, when I asked my friend Laura, so I was I went to ISU for music business in Bloomington, and after changing my major several times, I ended up with music business, and Laura was in one of my business classes, and I just always loved her voice. It was very passionate and very emotive and powerful, and at the time I wasn't quite ready to play and sing it, and I think both emotionally and like spiritually in my head, it was like I wasn't in the right headspace, and I'm still processing things, and I'm still letting it sink in, so to speak. And so I asked Laura to sing, and coincidentally kind of helped me write the melody line. And like, I am a major procrastinator, so we didn't really practice until like 2 days before the big performance. But she had the lyrics before, and she probably, I think she was working on some melody lines. And then when we got together, we literally ran it maybe 3 times, and she improvised the melody, and it was perfect. Like, I don't know how it happened. It was kind of a miracle. And then the day of my senior recital was our first performance, and like I said, I had my friend Devin on cello, and I on piano, and Laura singing. And, it was my senior recital, so all my family is there, and some peers and other students, and just the energy from the audience, and because they know what had happened, and so they were always trying to be supportive in whatever ways was available, and like coming to the senior recital was a big part of it. And so that was like, the senior recital is like your senior thesis or your dissertation or, something like that. And I remember coming out for it was like the encore, because nobody knew. Some people knew, but not many people knew that I even had prepared this song. So, and it wasn't in the recital, and they weren't really expecting it. So when I came out for the encore, I brought the girls with me, and everybody's kind of like, what's going on? And they sat down and we took our places, and I said a very few brief words, and this is a song I wrote for my parents, and I played it, and like there was not a dry eye in that auditorium that day, and like that was probably one of the most moving experiences I've ever had. And Laura, when she sang the melody line, it was perfect, and I really kind of used her improv and her structure of the melody line as a starting point, and I tweaked a few things here and there, and the song is still evolving because I still want to take it somewhere, and like I said, one day make it for like quartet or like a string horn ensemble of some sorts. And the halfway point when the chord progression turns, I think that was just another when I was improvising and kind of finding other ways that sounded. And I also, like I said, I wanted the music to reflect what was happening in the lyrics and to kind of illustrate, okay, well, I noticed that this part of the song is where the whole mood changes, and so I want the song to reflect more positivity and hopeful. And so I changed that chord progression to go up, and then after that little section, it comes back to the same chord progression from the beginning, but now it's a little more faster and more powerful and more uplifting, as opposed to maybe more melancholy and sad, but it's kind of one of those chord progressions, like it could be really sad, it could be really happy, it kind of depends on what's happening in the lyrics. And so I tried to kind of get them to tie together and have them both help each other, if that makes sense.
Well, it's kind of interesting that the interpretation of a chord in itself are relative to the chords. Well, I was going to say the chords that came before or after them. I love like thinking about how music kind of shapes our emotional state. Champaign is also a band podcast is proud to support Jubilee Cafe. Jubilee Cafe is a free weekly meal program at Community United Church of Christ, 805 South 6th Street in Champaign, Illinois. Jubilee Cafe serves a home-cooked meal from 5 to 6:30 each Monday. Their mission is to feed hungry people by cooking healthy, delicious meals and by serving their guests restaurant-style with servers waiting on tables. Jubilee Cafe is open to anyone who cares to eat with them. Because food insecurity among students is so high, they serve students as well as others in and around the Champaign-Urbana community who struggle with hunger. Meals are free to all and will be served each Monday evening. Located in the accessible lower level of the building at 6th and Daniel Streets in Champaign. For more information on the meal or how to volunteer, go to the Jubilee Cafe CUCC Facebook page or email them at jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. That's jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. I guess this makes me sad though that you're going to be taking your exceptional talent out to North Carolina, did you say?
Mm-hmm, that is
another state and of great distance from here. Not great distance, but of a reasonable distance that doesn't make it easy to just kind of come on over. But yeah, that's sad, but I it sounds like you have some really wonderful opportunities coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really hope for the best for you.
Thank you.
There's a decent amount of keyboarders, but not, if that's fair to say, keyboarders or pianists or keyboardists, there's a discipline and precision about the way that you play that's really wonderful, and I think it's too bad that we in the Champaign-Urbana music scene have to lose you. But
thanks, appreciate that.
You heard that, North Carolina? Got something good coming your way. All right, would you like to kind of say things that you're going to miss about the scene?
Yeah, absolutely.
About the Champaign-Urbana music scene.
This can be argued a lot of different ways, but I really am going to miss the variety of talent and the amount of talent that I've had the privilege of working with a lot of these incredible musicians, some of which have already moved away as well. But it's cool watching them move on to newer things, or even if they haven't moved out of Champaign, seeing them move on to different projects, because it feels like these numbers are based on no factual information,
right?
But it feels like there's maybe 40 musicians in town, but there's like 80 bands, and like a lot of us are in multiple projects, which I think is really cool. It can be a double-edged sword, because sometimes when you have multiple projects, it's hard to be as dedicated to the projects that you are in, so, and also availability. But it seems like everywhere you look, there's always somebody who's willing to show up, show out, and do a great job, and not only just bringing music, but bringing an entertaining performance that's engaging and makes you feel something. And I see a lot of artists and bands come and go and reform and come back to old groups, and they're always very inspiring, because whenever I go to usually the smaller indie shows or whatever, I just want to go home and write after I leave the show, and I'm feeling really motivated as a songwriter. To see somebody else do their craft just makes me want to work harder, and not to be in a competitive way, but being in competition with myself of well, this is what somebody else is accomplishing. Is that something that's a goal for me, and how can I get closer to that? And I feel like the scene here is really supportive. You have your cliques here and there, but generally speaking, even if you run into cliques, you're going to run into 5 other people that are going to be really open-minded to your music and just invite you in and be like, yeah, come play your music here, we have this, and we'll make you feel right at home. And Sven was that for me too. And there's a very supportive community that I found coming out here that was cool. Just really fun and fun loving, and I love the dogs. I'm an animal lover. I have a dog myself, so I think I brought Millie for Sven last year. But yeah, and then there's CU Bands and Fans is another great community that they're supporting the scene and trying to get everybody's shows out there. And every time I've messaged them to be like, hey, could you promote the show? They're like, yeah, of course. And they put it on their list that they put out weekly of all the shows. And there's also sort of little pockets of people. And I know CI Living, every once in a while they do a music portion or that features, and I got to play the Valentine's special this last February with Wellspring Duo. They're a couple good friends of mine. I don't know, there's a lot of great things going in the scene, and I really hope it continues to thrive. And we've seen some good venues go and close down, but in replace of those, there have been a few others that have opened up and tried to kind of fill that void. And even the DIY underground scene, they're trying their hardest to give those smaller guys an opportunity to play. So any new band or new person that is like, man, I just started making music, but none of these bars will hire me, I'm just like, don't worry about the bars. Go to the house scenes, go to Blips and Shits, go to Casa de Sasha, there's all sorts of places, and I try and be a good resource for those who don't, either new to the scene or have no idea where to go, because the longer I've stayed here, the more I realize that there are people who want to support the locals and who are willing to fork up for a couple of bucks to make it happen.
Right. As part of your tenure here at the Champaign-Urbana music scene, are there any particular moments that stick out to you that were like particularly exceptional, whether it was you as an audience member or you as a performer?
Oh man, it's a tough question. Specifically in this, performing in here or just in general?
You mean like tonight? No, I'm just
in Central Illinois, or
yeah. I was just thinking if there was just something that stood out to you in the Champaign-Urbana music scene area. Like, I was at Mike and Molly's one night. I was walking by, and I don't know, some band was playing. And it was amazing.
I mean, I've seen so many amazing shows and so many amazing moments of, an exchange of energy between performers and audience. I don't know that I really have a favorite, but I do have a few that stick out in mind. I only did Tell Mama for a year before the lead singer and our guitarist, who were kind of the heart of the band. They were moving out of state for different jobs. Mm-hmm. And we had our final show at Cowboy Monkey. Cowboy Monkey was kind of like our home turf. We played a lot of shows there, and always a good crowd, and I feel like quite a few people knew who Tell Mama was, and so they were always on the lookout for our shows. And we had a really good turnout for the final show, and to like look out in the crowd and see everybody dancing. And sadly, that was my first and only show that I got to sing lead on a song, because I was more preferred to be like backup and harmonies, and mostly because like Ryan Canada, our lead singer, was just an incredible powerhouse of a vocalist, and there was no way I could even like match her greatness. But I sang What I'd Say by Ray Charles, and it's one of my favorite songs, and that was a really fun moment for me to sing that little tribute in at our final show. I've seen a lot of shows at Iron Post that were really fun. Probably my favorite at Iron Post was like Soul on Sunday, which they still do. It's the last Sunday of every month, and sometimes they do themes. Aaron Wilson, A+ A-Train, he's the one who books those, and I met him at a Changemakers meeting. I don't know if you're familiar with the CU Changemakers group. They're another community that I got a part of, and they're, just exactly how they sound. They're trying to make change, and so every once in a while they'll meet, and they'll do like little social meetups where they try and meet other people who are trying to make social change in the community. And so awesome. Aaron approached me, and we got to talking and connected over music, and he was just like, well, come to my stage and sing. Like, we have a backup band, and every time I go there, like, I get really nervous, but like everybody's just so welcoming and friendly, and I don't really have a favorite one performance, but every time I've gone, like they've been really open and accepting, and just like come up after the show and just be like, man, like that was so beautiful, like you really keep doing music, and just encouraging. And so those are some of the ones that kind of stick out.
That's excellent. Well, and I'm also glad to hear like about new organizations or groups of people that are doing things that are about finding great things in Champaign-Urbana and
connecting with like minds, basically.
I love that. I guess we might as well go with, what are you not gonna miss about the Champaign-Urbana music scene? If you feel so inclined, we can also skip that, but
I don't know. Even if there's something I don't like, there's always people who are, who are on the opposite end of the spectrum that are, supporting the scene. Recently, I've heard some people complain about how it's either all the same performers or there's not enough venues, which I think you must not be looking hard enough if that's the complaint. And I mean, granted, there are a small a group of musicians that kind of in rotation of, they get the most shows, but it's mostly because they're the ones willing to respond to emails and to show up, and that's that's a whole nother argument of why some musicians may or may not be as reliable. But I think at the end of the day, the people who are willing to work hard and willing to show up, like those are the ones that are gonna keep getting booked and keep coming back and keep persevering, really.
I am going to do something kind of random. I've never done this before, but I happen to notice on your left forearm you have Do I have? Oh, okay, good. Because I am dyslexic, so I do have
me
problem.
too.
I do have. Sometimes I'm like, God, did I just say the wrong direction? But I happen to notice you had like a DNA strand
Yes.
in there. Is there something? Is there a story behind that?
Can you see the piano keys in there?
Oh,
It's the running joke. I always like to say piano's in my DNA, and then I show him this tattoo.
nice. Oh my God. Well, and I couldn't see it before, but that's awesome.
Yeah, I saw that and I immediately fell in love with it, and like it really kind of describes how I feel about music and piano, is because I started taking lessons when I was 5 years old, and so I've been playing for 24 years.
Wow.
And music is about as natural as breathing is to me, and like as cheesy as it sounds.
No, that makes sense.
And like I've probably hit my 100,000 hours at like the end of high school.
Oh my goodness.
And like in college, when I was studying music, especially when I was preparing for my senior recital, I was practicing about 7 or 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So I was like a part-time, almost full-time job for me. Yeah.
Did you have that done around here, or?
The guy who did it used to be from here. I met him in Bloomington, and he did like the first 3 or 4 of my tattoos, and then I moved to Champaign, and then I called to make an appointment, and they were like, oh, he's moved to Champaign. I was like, perfect, because I have too. So I found him, and he continued tatting me for a few years, and then he moved to Indian Wells, California, which I just so happened to be going on a road trip there with my girlfriend a few months later, which that's where I got this one done. It's called Enso, which is Chinese for a circle. And it's kind of Zen Buddhists used to draw, and so daily as kind of a meditative ritual.
Right.
And there's like a long story behind it. I won't go too deep into it, but then
we've got time.
Then a couple of years later, I was going for my cousin's wedding, which was in Indian Wells. So I have 11 tattoos, and 9 of them have been done by him.
Why would you make the horrible, horrible decision to leave Champaign-Urbana? No, I say that out of love.
Yes.
So,
well, just to preface, I love this town, and some people have asked me that. Like, I'm not really leaving because there's anything wrong with Champaign. I really love it, and I think it's a great place to settle down. And I think one day we'll probably come back when I've seen the world. Yes, right? They all do.
It's the black hole. Well, and you were you born here in
I was born in Carl.
No.
I know,
You're
Urbana.
Totally... My wife was born here, nice. And she describes this place as the black hole. Mm-hmm. It's like you try to leave, but then you get sucked back in, especially if you're capital T townie. You're leaving, but just to get out and explore the world and come back. I haven't really lived anywhere else outside of Illinois. I lived in Bloomington Normal for 6 years for school, and then came back here 4 or 5 years ago, and like I've loved it, and I've gotten so many opportunities, and I don't think that would stop getting opportunities if I stayed here. I think it would just be what kind of opportunities am I looking for, and if I'm wanting to move on. So my plan, I know I met a friend down in technically it's Burnsville, a little place called Snaggy Mountain, and I was traveling there with a girlfriend. We were filming this very small documentary about sustainable living, and so he lives on an off-grid farm. Wow. It's another big story there. Oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. I would love to get off grid
and
if possible.
I just fell in love with the scenery and the forest. It's right by Pisgah National Forest.
Wow.
And I always told myself I want to come back because he said he does the in-artist residencies and he's trying to build like a studio and all sorts of stuff. And I kept in touch with him. And actually, when Snail went on our summer tour, I got us booked a show there. So we went and performed on the stage that he had built that overlooks the mountains.
That's
where I'm going to be.
That would be amazing.
Yes. And
I'm sorry, was that something that, like, at that point when you went and performed, you were like, that's it, that's where I have to go? Or?
I had already knew a long time before.
Okay.
In fact, that stage wasn't built until after I had first visited. So I went there like 6 years ago, and at the time it was still all in the process of constructing, so a lot of it hadn't really been finished. And so he was just telling me all of his dreams, and I'm, when people make plans, it's kind of like sometimes it'll happen, sometimes life happens and it doesn't happen the way you planned for it. So I was like, I'll kind of keep an eye out and see how things go, and he's been making massive strides over there, and coming back to visit was really nostalgic and really just like I felt home, partially because there's just so much nature, and it's like outside of any like city noise and pollution, and it's just a very like quiet, homey, quaint town. And that Asheville's right next door, so there's a lot of good music opportunities there. But like I said, his artist residency is a maximum of 3 months. So after the winter months are over, I'm going to be getting on the road, and I just want to go see the U.S. and see, because I haven't really been to a lot of like national monuments or national forests, and I have a lot of friends all over the states, so I kind of want to hit up those places when I go by them, and then I'm going to come back and visit in April. And probably again in July, because I got pulled into doing this awesome camp for kids. Do you know about ISYM?
No. So
it's a program, I think U of I don't know if they just host it or if they organize it as well, but it's a portion of it is called Rock Band Camp, and I was helping a group of like 12 to 16, 17-year-olds form a band and kind of talk through learning 4 or 5 songs, and then we have rehearsals all week, and they go to some other electives, like there's a songwriting class you can take, or a music business or technology class, and then at the end of the week they have a big showcase where they put on a concert for all the songs that they learned, and it was
sounds great,
super inspiring, and it was just so much fun working with kids, and because they all want to be there and they all want to learn this rock music. They like begged me to come back because they're like, we need more keyboard instructors, and it was a blast to work with. So I do want to come back for that. And then my birthday and a bunch of my other family's birthday are in April, and so I'm kind of trying to be here, and I want to book some shows while I'm here. So and then after that, just zigzagging across the U.S. and landing in Eugene around next winter.
Wow. So
I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm going to try and hit all 49 states, or at least the ones I haven't been to yet, and see as much as I can. So that's kind of my year-long plan.
Champaign is also a Band podcast is proud to support Exile on Main Street. Exile on Main Street, located in the old train station building at 100 North Chestnut Street in downtown Champaign, has been helping to build record collections since 2004. Carrying a wide array of new and used LPs, CDs, and video games. Exile on Main Street has something for just about any music enthusiast and old-school gaming devotee. Exile also hosts regular free live music shows on its stage, so be sure to check out their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for the up-to-date details on the next upcoming event. Open 7 days a week, they can be reached by phone at 217-398-MAIN. That's 217-398-6246. what's like your favorite non-musical thing in the world or whatever?
Well, I have a few. So there's two major things I do that are not music that kind of keeps me sane. I'm a seamstress, and my mom taught me how to sew from a very young age, and I used to do 4-H, and I can make clothes from scratch.
Wow.
And I don't make my clothes as often as I could because I'm lazy, but I have a few dresses that I've made, and I've always made my Halloween costume almost every year. I don't really do that much anymore, but I did last year just for the fun of it. And then a lot of times I really like taking clothes and altering them to look more my style or to reflect something, because I always want to change whatever I see. You know, when I bring it home from the store, I'm like, it could be cooler if I did this, and like, wow, I can alter it to my own style. And then I'm also a Reiki master. I don't know if you're familiar with energy work.
So how did you become a Reiki master?
I think it was like freshman or sophomore year of college when I first heard about it, and my girlfriend had been practicing it for a little bit, and like when I first heard her talk about it, I was kind of like, oh, that sounds really strange, but whatever. And then a few years later, a friend of mine had brought it up, and I'm like, oh, I heard about that. You know, I didn't really know what it was, so I started looking more into it and kind of found that it was really intriguing. It didn't have it wasn't related to any religion, you know, it was kind of just a free standing thing. And that was probably my junior or senior year of college is when I became more interested. And then through a mutual friend, we found two Reiki masters in Bloomington, Craig and Sheila, and really, really, really nice folk, like just super down to earth, genuine, pure souls. And they were practicing Christians, and they could separate their religion from Reiki, but they kind of incorporate both of them in their own personal use. But when they were training, they would it was just a very like spiritual experience, and they weren't trying to like push their beliefs on us or anything, and they were just like, this is what we do, and like kind of adapted to your own beliefs. And so I got my first degree certificate like the end of 2012, and then about a year later I got second degree. And there's three degrees, and then after that you can become master teacher, where you can give other people the same certifications, or just just Reiki master. And I waited, but I didn't do anything with it other than just practicing on my own personal time, and to friends when it came by. I didn't like try and set up a practice or company or anything. And then just in the last 2 or 3 years, I kind of felt like I wanted to go all the way and become a master teacher. And then I kind of started putting the vibes out to the universe and saying, I'm looking for a Reiki master who can help me with this last certification, and found Jessica Nolan in town, and she's got her own practice. She's also a massage therapist, and so a lot of time massage therapists will incorporate both that and Reiki together.
You don't have a plan to have a practice or anything, or you do, or?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I don't plan on doing a practice with it. It's something that's kind of in the back of my mind of, I think if I wanted to grow it more, I would definitely give it more attention. And right now, music is kind of where I want most of my attention to be until I'm ready to switch focus, Right. But I found Jessica, and we did the final training, and I got all the way to master teacher. So now I can give other people that same certification. But there's not a huge crowd for it in Champaign-Urbana. There's not a lot of people that know about it, and Urbana, there's a little bit more of the granola crowd that they they know what's
that's some Urbana shit right there, as they say. Yeah.
But like giving the certification is another one that I've definitely, like, that's why I did it, is also to give it to other people. But yeah, it's so it's been, I think I've been doing it for 6 years total now. Wow. And I mean, everybody's experience is different.
I'm sad to have this end, but Kelsey, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
It's it's been very wonderful to hear the story about your song Healing and coming in, getting to watch you perform. I feel honored by the fact that you were able to come in and record the song, and now this podcast will be able to also share that wonderful piece. And anyway, best wishes for all your endeavors, and
thank you.
I enjoy your year-long trip. It sounds amazing, and definitely, seriously, do it while you're young. Do that. Get out there. Yeah. But even if you're getting old, you should probably do it too. I'm saying this to you,
never too
future
late.
Sven.
Yes.
But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Champaign is Also a Band podcast. This is Kelsey reminding you great music is out there. Go find it where you live.
In this episode, we briefly discuss suicide. If you or someone you know is in emotional distress or having thoughts of suicide, you can get support 24/7, 365 from the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or at the Crisis Text Line at 741-741. In the CU area, you can also call the Rosencrantz Crisis Line at 217-359-4141. Please look out for each other and know that there is help out there. You almost have an NPR voice. It's so good. Studio South Beaker.